Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. If you've been anywhere near the news over the past 48 hours, you already know we're sitting right in the middle of a massive, fast-moving geopolitical story. A highly classified, incredibly controversial Memorandum of Understanding, which is essentially a peace deal between the United States and Iran, has been leaked to the public. And the global shockwaves, they are absolutely immense. So today, we're going to unpack exactly what the source materials are telling us about this document, look at the fierce pushback from military and political figures, and explore the profound ways this might literally reshape the global order. We're going to stick strictly to the facts and the reporting as they stand right now. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. To bring some actual order to the chaotic wall of media headlines out there, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll look at the leaked peace deal itself. Second, we'll examine the domestic political shockwaves back in Washington. Third, we'll explore the total disbelief radiating from America's closest allies. And finally, we'll zoom out to look at the massive global strategic shifts.
Let's start right at the epicenter of the controversy. Section 1. The leaked peace deal, a geopolitical earthquake.
To understand the sheer scale of what we're dealing with, just take a look at this framing. Major outlets like Sky News are reporting on this breaking news under the banner Leaked Peace Deal Political Defeat for U.S. I mean, that is a striking, heavy characterization, right? Military analysts are actively scrambling to dissect the exact wording of this leak because the implications of an agreement ending the recent hostilities with Iran are just staggering. This isn't your everyday routine diplomatic cable. The media is treating this as a true paradigm-shifting event that could redefine American influence in the Middle East literally overnight.
So, what exactly is this document? Well, at its core, it's a Memorandum of Understanding, or an MOU. This is essentially a formal agreement outlining the terms of an understanding between two parties. Now, according to deep dives by experts, like Sky News' military analyst Professor Michael Clark, the leaked versions of this MOU revolve heavily around one absolutely crucial geographical choke point: the future of the Strait of Hormuz. The parameters surrounding how this vital trade route is going to be managed moving forward seem to be the beating heart of this leaked document, and it's the specific terms of this MOU that have triggered an absolute firestorm of reactions.
Let's move to and see how this builds stateside. Section 2. Domestic Political Shockwaves. Backlash in Washington.
The reaction from top U.S. military figures to this leaked MOU has been exceptionally unified and, honestly, incredibly harsh. You have Lieutenant General Ben Hodges going on the record calling the blundering Iran deal a gross failure and stating pretty frankly that it's hard to imagine a worse outcome. And echoing that intense alarm is General Jack Keane, who emphatically warned, "We cannot let this happen." You really can't ignore the severity of the language being used by decorated military analysts here. They clearly view the concessions in this leaked deal not as standard diplomacy, but as a deeply dangerous misstep.
And you know, the political rhetoric is just as volatile, highlighting a massive ideological clash. On one hand, you've got reports from CBS News where Donald Trump tells Axios that there are no limits to his power following the Iran war, projecting this absolute confidence in his executive authority to forge this path. But then contrast that with former President Bill Clinton, who is issuing stark, historical warnings about the gravity of the concessions. He's sounding the alarm about what Trump has, quote, signed away at Versailles. The juxtaposition here is just incredible. You have one side claiming limitless executive triumph, while the other is claiming a historic, catastrophic surrender of leverage.
But here's the thing, this divide isn't even strictly partisan. There are deep fractures across the entire political landscape. CBS News reports that the initial U.S.-Iran deal is drawing notably mixed reactions from Republicans themselves. It's actually become such a cultural and political flashpoint that late-night hosts like Jimmy Kimmel are devoting whole segments to Republicans bashing their own party's deal and Trump's behavior with world leaders. But perhaps the most intriguing thread in all of this is the source of the leak itself. Political strategist James Carville openly speculated on this, asking the pivotal question, who is leaking, and suggesting that the administration is scared. Honestly, the chaotic nature of the leak itself is driving almost as much domestic shockwave as the actual text of the MOU.
Let's step outside of Washington now and look at the international community. Section 3. Allies in disbelief, friction with Israel.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the immediate visceral reaction from Israel as reported by international media. France 24 English is reporting that this U.S.-Iran agreement leaves Israelis in a profound state of shock. We aren't just talking about a mild diplomatic disagreement here. We are talking about a seismic shift in security assumptions. For decades, the entire geopolitical posture in that region has been predicated on a very specific U.S.-Israeli alignment regarding Iran. This leaks document has seemingly upended that certainty overnight, creating this jarring reality check for America's top Middle Eastern ally.
And the public rhetoric stemming from this friction?
It's completely unprecedented. Look at the stark contrast in these reports. On one hand, you have J.D. Vance delivering what the Times of India called a brutal reality check to Israel following the Iran shock, reportedly telling them, "You survive on U.S. money and weapons." That kind of blunt public conditioning of the alliance is definitely jarring. But on the flip side, you have prominent international relations scholars like Professor John Mearsheimer actively analyzing the countermeasures. Mearsheimer argues that Israel is not just sitting by in shock, but is actively working to undermine the U.S.-Iran deal. So we're witnessing an extraordinary public tug-of-war between the U.S. trying to secure this controversial MOU and Israel deploying strategic leverage to disrupt it.
Which brings us to our final and arguably most important lens, Section 4, Global Strategic Shifts, the Macro Consequences.
And this brilliantly illustrates how a leaked piece of paper translates into real-world concrete and steel. Remember the Strait of Hormuz from earlier? Well, because of the extreme volatility surrounding this peace deal and the preceding conflict, the global market is no longer waiting around for diplomatic assurances. Reports are highlighting a massive logistical shift. There are 4 distinct megaprojects currently under construction, explicitly designed to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. The international community assessed the severe geopolitical vulnerability of relying on that waterway. They secured massive infrastructure funding, and now they are actively building entirely new routes to reroute global trade. The physical map of global energy and trade is literally being redrawn because of this conflict and the subsequent controversial MOU.
Alongside all that physical infrastructure, the diplomatic and economic architecture of the world is shifting just as rapidly. Economist Peter Schiff has issued a pretty dire warning that the Iran war has fundamentally weakened the U.S. globally on an economic level. And while the U.S. is bogged down dealing with internal leaks and fractured alliances, other superpowers are stepping confidently into the void. We're seeing reports of Russia carefully monitoring Putin-Trump talks, clearly positioning themselves strategically. Plus, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov is publicly dismissing European Union diplomatic visits to Russia as entirely empty. The tone here is absolutely unmistakable. As the U.S. navigates the immense blowback of this leaked deal, rival nations are projecting a bold, dismissive confidence on the world stage.
So the crucial point is this. What we are looking at isn't just a fleeting political scandal or a controversial diplomatic leak. From the outrage of top military generals to the shock of key allies, all the way to the literal construction of mega projects to reroute global trade, the reverberations of this MOU are massive. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Long after the immediate political chaos subsides, how permanently has this leaked peace deal altered the global balance of power? Take a second to really think about how these shifting alliances and new trade routes might look 5 or 10 years down the road. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you in the next one.